At this moment, Bakugo has been captured by the League of Villains. This makes Midoriya's class very worried, while Midoriya is blaming himself, because he let Bakugo be taken away right in front of him. So, Kirishima tells Midoriya, "Let's go save Bakugo together." This makes everyone worried, because they are not allowed to fight the villains. But, Shoto also decides to go with Kirishima. This makes Lita angry, because they cannot break the academy's rules. Suddenly, the doctor arrived to check Midoriya's health, so everyone had to leave. Kirishima then advised Midoriya, "If you want to save Bakugo, we will meet tonight." But, Lita also heard. At this moment, the doctor said this injury of Midoriya's was too severe, because his bones had exploded. Normally, the human body can only use 80% of its strength, but in an urgent situation, Midoriya used 100% of his strength. So, Midoriya's body exceeded its limits. If he continues to get injured like that, then, Midoriya's arms will be crippled. Suddenly, the doctor gave Midoriya a letter. It turned out to be a letter from Kota. He thanked Midoriya for saving him. This made Midoriya emotional. By the afternoon, Midoriya was discharged from the hospital, so, he called his mother. On the professional heroes' side, they had started to take action, because this time they were determined to capture the League of Villains. At this moment, Kirishima and Shoto asked Momo to help them make another tracking device. So that night, both of them waited for Momo. Unexpectedly, she appeared with Midoriya, which surprised them. But, Lita also came. He immediately scolded Midoriya and Shoto to prevent them from making another mistake, because students cannot fight villains without permission. While Midoriya was trying to explain to Lita, suddenly, Lita punched him in the face. This surprised everyone, because Lita is the class president, so, he has a responsibility to the class members. But, Shoto told Lita, they had no intention of fighting the League of Villains, because they only wanted to save Bakugo. They would not break the rules. Momo also agreed to help everyone. At this moment, Midoriya told Lita, he deeply regretted not being able to save Bakugo. So this time, Midoriya was determined to save him. Suddenly, Lita also agreed to go with them. At this moment, All Might and the other professional heroes gathered to discuss the strategy to fight the League of Villains. On Bakugo's side, he was still being persuaded by Tamura to join the League of Villains. But, Bakugo still firmly refused. At this moment, Midoriya's group was ready to take action, and Lita would be responsible for supervising them. Momo also came up with a plan for the group, because they had to save Bakugo, but could not fight, so, they went to the city where the League of Villains base was located, making Kirishima very eager to find Bakugo. But, Momo said they had to be careful, and she came up with an idea, so, they all went into a clothing shop to disguise themselves. They even had to change their personalities. Suddenly, Midoriya saw Aizawa appear on TV. It turned out he was apologizing for the League of Villains attack, which resulted in a student being kidnapped. But, the reporters kept asking about the 4 attacks on the academy, making everyone start to doubt the academy's security. Midoriya's group saw that everyone was disappointed, because they no longer trusted the academy. On Tamura's side, he was very proud of his perfect plan, causing the academy to lose everyone's trust. Suddenly, Tamura told Dabi to untie Bakugo, because he thought Bakugo wouldn't be foolish enough to cause trouble in their base. Unexpectedly, as soon as Bakugo was untied, he immediately attacked Tamura, making the hand on Tamura's face fall off, because Bakugo couldn't stand their words, and he declared, "I will be the one to surpass All Might." At this moment, the reporters were still pressuring Aizawa, because Bakugo had very high achievements in the academy, so, they believed that the League of Villains would definitely try to recruit him. Blood Hero noticed these reporters were provoking Aizawa to get more hot news, but, Aizawa still had a lot of faith in Bakugo. He was certain that Bakugo would not join the League of Villains, while Bakugo asserted to Tamura, "I will never join you guys." And Bakugo was trying to find a way to escape from them, so, Bakugo continued to provoke the villains, because he knew they didn't want to kill him. Kurogiri saw that Tamura was losing his composure and might kill Bakugo. Unexpectedly, Tamura ordered everyone not to touch him, because Bakugo was an important pawn for them, but, he realized they no longer had time to persuade Bakugo here. So, Tamura asked to borrow his master's power. It turned out All for One was still observing Tamura. On Midoriya's team side, they had found the League of Villains base. So, Midoriya analyzed everyone's quirks and made a plan to rescue Bakugo. At this moment, the professional heroes and police had also begun to act. They were determined to rescue Bakugo and eliminate the League of Villains. While Midoriya's team was still observing, trying to find a way to infiltrate their base, they walked down a narrow alley, They saw a window, so Lita lifted Kirishima to look inside. Suddenly, he became terrified. Thus, he told Midoriya to take a look. Unexpectedly, he saw many Nomu inside. This surprised Midoriya. While Bakugo didn't know who Tamura's master was, Tamura realized Bakugo was becoming annoyed, so he decided to let Bakugo sleep for a while. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door delivering pizza, which surprised them. When they let their guard down, All Might immediately attacked from inside, shocking them. The villains were immediately subdued by the heroes. When Dabi attempted to use fire to escape, he was immediately knocked unconscious by Gran Torino. They quickly subdued the villains, and the police surrounded the entire area. All Might immediately comforted Bakugo, because he thought Bakugo must have been very scared. While Tamura didn't understand why All Might appeared here, he realized they couldn't easily escape. So, Tamura called the Nomu to come here. On Midoriya's team side, they saw Mount Lady had destroyed the Nomu's laboratory room. Kurogiri said to Tamura, he couldn't call the Nomu here. It turns out Tsunagu's team had already subdued the Nomu. At this moment, the villains saw the pressure from All Might, which made them terrified. But Tamura was determined not to give up, and he remembered when All for One saved him when he was young. While All Might was questioning where All for One was, Tamura said, I will kill you. Suddenly, the Nomu appeared, surprising the heroes. While All Might was off guard, Bakugo was immediately taken away, which shocked him. At this moment, the Nomu kept appearing. So, Tsukachi immediately contacted Tsunagu, but he had lost communication. All Might didn't understand whose quirk that teleportation was. Tamura realized his master had arrived. Turns out, 2 hours ago, Midoriya's team had seen the heroes subduing the Nomu, helped them feel reassured, because they thought All Might had rescued Bakugo. So, they decided to leave. Suddenly, Midoriya heard someone approaching. Thus, the heroes immediately attacked him. Unexpectedly, they were immediately defeated and everything was destroyed, shocking Midoriya's team, because this person's power was too terrifying, and Midoriya realized he was All for One. At this moment, the villains vomited a black liquid. All Might realized things were not okay, so he tried to capture Tamura, but all of them immediately disappeared, surprising the heroes, because there was still someone else with a teleportation quirk. Then, the Nomu blocked their way, making All Might angry and throwing them away. At this time, Endeavor was trying to hold back the Nomu outside, so All Might handed over everything here to Endeavor, to let him chase after the villains. Tsunagu was completely defeated. All for One praised him, because earlier he had managed to save his teammates. At this point, Tsunagu also realized he was All for One, the one with strength comparable to All Might. But Tsunagu didn't give up and attacked him. Unexpectedly, Tsunagu was immediately defeated. Midoriya's team witnessed the power of All for One, causing them to be so frightened they couldn't move. Suddenly, Bakugo was teleported there, surprising Midoriya. At this moment, the villains also appeared. He realized that Tamura's plan had failed, but he still comforted Tamura to try harder, and he would do everything to help Tamura. While Midoriya was worrying, but he still regretted not saving Bakugo last time. So, Midoriya immediately tried to find a way to rescue Bakugo, and he forced his body to act. However, Midoriya was stopped by Lita. Even though they were very scared, they wanted to rescue Bakugo with Midoriya. Suddenly, All for One sensed that All Might had arrived, and he attacked All for One with a powerful blow, sending everyone flying, which surprised Midoriya. But All for One said, "You have weakened All Might." Bakugo was surprised that he could block All Might's punch. All Might said, "I will defeat you once again." So, he immediately rushed to attack All for One, but All for One created a massive gust of wind that blew away All Might, revealing that he had combined 4 different quirks to create that attack. All for One realized that All Might would soon return, so he used black tendrils to pierce Kurogiri's body. It turns out he wants to coerce Kurogiri into using his quirk. Thus, a warp gate appeared, and he told them to quickly leave, but All Might immediately returned. So, All for One began fighting him, while the villains were trying to take Bakugo away, making Midoriya worried, because All Might was being blocked by All for One. At this moment, Bakugo tried to resist them. Midoriya realized All Might wanted to protect Bakugo, so he couldn't fight comfortably. Suddenly, Midoriya came up with a plan. Thus, Midoriya immediately discussed the plan with everyone, while All Might was still being held back by All for One, making him very worried about Bakugo. Suddenly, Midoriya's group sprang into action. He and Iida immediately grabbed Kirishima and ran outside. Shoto created a large ice ramp for them to slide on the ice, surprising the villains. When All For One tried to attack them, All Might immediately struck him and sent him flying. Because Midoriya knew Bakugo wouldn't accept his help, he let Kirishima handle this. Kirishima immediately told Bakugo to grab his hand. So, Bakugo promptly used his quirk to dash towards them. And he caught Kirishima's hand, making Tamura furious because Bakugo escaped right in front of him. Then, Magna used the magnetism quirk, and he threw Mr. Compress to chase after them. But he was immediately intercepted by Mount Lady, making them surprised. When he was about to try again, Gran Torino immediately defeated them, making Midoriya surprised. He felt that Midoriya was becoming more reckless like All Might. Thanks to that, they rescued Bakugo. Now, All Might could fight against All For One with peace of mind. Suddenly, All For One continued to coerce Magna to use their quirk, and he immediately pulled Tamura's group inside the warp gate. But, Tamura didn't want to leave, because he realized that All For One's body was very weak. When All Might attacked All For One, he immediately shifted Gran Torino to serve as a shield. All Might saw that All For One was about to kill Gran Torino, so he blocked All For One's attack, which pushed All Might back. At this moment, All For One mocked All Might for being too busy, because he had too many people to protect, which made All Might furious, because he was the one who had destroyed their lives. So, All Might immediately rushed forward and grabbed All For One's hand, and he punched him straight in the face. Gran Torino realized that All Might was reaching his limit. Unexpectedly, All For One could still talk. He mocked All Might's mentor, named Shimura, which made All Might remember the first time he met his mentor. He had told Shimura that, "I want to become the symbol of peace, to be a pillar of support for everyone." This surprised Shimura. Because All Might was quirkless, Shimura found All Might very interesting. At this time, the city was in chaos. Shoto and Momo managed to escape. So, both of them immediately contacted Midoriya. Midoriya announced that they had successfully rescued Bakugo. Bakugo and Midoriya realized they staying there was just hindering All Might. While All Might landed a powerful punch on All For One, but he kept mocking Shimura and All Might continuously, making All Might furious, because he wouldn't allow him to insult his master, but he still said that Shimura is a disgrace to him. Even her fate is also a very tragic ending, making All Might unable to restrain himself anymore. So, he immediately attacked All For One. But, he blew All Might away with air cannon. Luckily, Gran Torino managed to catch All Might in time. Gran Torino said he was just trying to make All Might lose his calm. So, he helped All Might calm down. During the live broadcast of All Might and All For One's battle, everyone was surprised. Meanwhile, Midoriya's class is very worried about All Might. All For One said, "Though I killed your master, you've also taken everything from me." This made him very angry, so, All For One continued to use air cannon. All Might realized he was aiming at a civilian behind him. Thus, All Might immediately intercepted that attack. Unexpectedly, All Might's body began to shrink, causing everyone to be surprised and ask, "Is this skinny guy really All Might?" While Midoriya was in shock, because All Might's secret had been exposed, due to injuries from the previous battle with All For One, All Might's body had weakened. At this point, All For One continued to mock this form of All Might, but All Might remained determined and said, "No matter how weak I become, my heart will always be the symbol of peace." All For One revealed a secret to All Might suddenly. Tamura is actually Shimura's grandson, which shocked All Might greatly. It turned out that All For One had been orchestrating Tamura's confrontations with All Might all along. He saw that All Might couldn't smile anymore, which amused him greatly. All Might remembered the words of his master. A hero not only saves people, and a hero must also save their souls. At this moment, All Might was in shock, because Tamura truly was his master's grandson. But, the girl behind him was pleading for All Might's help. Suddenly, Midoriya noticed everyone cheering for All Might, so, he and Bakugo shouted as well. Unexpectedly, this helped All Might regain his resolve, and he immediately used One for All once more. Gran Torino realized All Might was pushing past his limits, which amused All For One greatly. As he prepared to strike All Might, suddenly, he was held back by Endeavor. He couldn't believe All Might's body had deteriorated to this extent, because Endeavor had always trained to surpass All Might, but he still couldn't catch up to All Might. At this moment, other heroes also came to help All Might, because they all hoped All Might would win, while everyone was cheering for All Might, because he is their #1 hero. Suddenly, All For One blew away Endeavor, and he immediately unleashed all of his power, because this time he was determined to kill All Might, surprising everyone. So, All for One immediately attacked All Might. And he realized Midoriya is All Might's successor, but he saw him as nothing but useless. So, All Might also unleashed his punch, to directly confront All for One. But, All Might's arm reached its limit, causing him to be pushed back by All for One. However, All Might remembered Midoriya, because he is determined to become the symbol of peace for everyone. Therefore, he needs to live, to wait for the day Midoriya grows up. Unexpectedly, All Might managed to punch All for One in the face. Gran Torino realized All Might had transferred the power from his right hand to his left. But, All for One continued to unleash his power. Even though All Might's right hand was injured, he still tried to activate the full power of One for All. And All Might punched him in the face. Then, a massive shockwave occurred, surprising everyone. Finally, All Might defeated All for One, making everyone very happy. Even though All Might was exhausted, he still tried to stand up, to fulfill his final task, as the symbol of peace. Suddenly, All Might pointed towards the camera and said, "Next, it's your turn." Seeing All Might so cool, made everyone happy. But, only Midoriya understood the meaning in All Might's words. "I can't use One for All anymore. So next, it's up to you." This made Midoriya burst into tears. After the battle with All for One ended, All Might was taken to the hospital. Even though he realized he had no more strength left, All Might still had to find a way to save Tamura, because Tamura is indeed his master's grandson. However, Gran Torino advised All Might to temporarily set this aside, because he still had responsibilities at the Hero Academy. At this time, Shoto had returned home. Suddenly, he saw his father very angry, because Endeavor couldn't accept this weakened state of All Might. Meanwhile, Midoriya also returned home, making his mother very worried. Suddenly that night, Midoriya received a call from All Might, so he immediately ran to the beach. When Midoriya was deeply worried about All Might, unexpectedly, he was punched in the face by All Might, because earlier he had gone to rescue Bakugo on his own. At this moment, All Might said he couldn't fight anymore, because the last embers of One for All had vanished. But, All Might saw that Midoriya had escaped danger, and was unharmed, which made All Might very happy. Meanwhile, Midoriya burst into tears, because of All Might's caring words for him. The next morning, the principal thanked All Might, for saving all the citizens in the city. However, many people opposed All Might continuing to teach at the academy, so, the principal told All Might to visit each student's home, to persuade them. Thus, All Might and Aizawa went to Kyoka's home. But, Kyoka's parents still seemed displeased, because the academy didn't ensure their child's safety. So, Aizawa apologized to them, and promised to train Kyoka to become a hero. Suddenly, Kyoka brought water for them and said, in fact, her parents were very excited, because they saw All Might fighting on TV. Next, they went to Bakugo's home, which surprised All Might, because his family was very peculiar and hot-tempered. But, Bakugo's mother still had great trust in the academy. So, they decided to let Bakugo continue studying there. As All Might and Aizawa left, Bakugo then asks All Might, "What are you to Deku?" All Might replied, "He's also my student, just like you." Because unable to disclose the secret of One for All to Bakugo, at this point, All Might went alone to Midoriya's house, causing Midoriya's mother to worry. Unexpectedly, his mother did not agree, surprising Midoriya. If Midoriya continued to be injured, then both his arms would be crippled. Therefore, she was a mother. She couldn't stop worrying about her son, even though she knew this was Midoriya's dream. But, she still refused All Might. So, Midoriya advised his mother to let him continue studying at the academy. However, Midoriya's mother still disagreed, which made Midoriya angrily leave. Even All Might didn't know what to do. Suddenly, Midoriya returned, and he showed his mother Kota's letter, a boy whom Midoriya had saved. Thanks to this letter, Midoriya felt like he was a hero. All Might saw Midoriya's determination, so he immediately transformed, and he knelt down to apologize to Midoriya's mother. All Might believed that Midoriya was worthy to inherit his legacy. This made Midoriya's mother confused, but she remembered Midoriya's dream. Finally, she agreed with All Might. This made Midoriya very happy. At this time, All for One had been captured. He realized that All Might's way of teaching was to accompany his students, but he believed that leaving his students would so help Tamura become stronger quickly. Afterwards, all of Midoriya's classmates returned to the academy, and they would stay in the new dormitory. This is their new home, making everyone very happy, because their families allowed them to stay in the dormitory. Aizawa realized he needed to get permits for his students first, and he knew Midoriya's group had secretly gone to rescue Bakugo. But he decided to temporarily overlook this matter, so Aizawa led everyone to the dormitory, making them very excited, because the place felt like a mansion. While Mineta thought the bathrooms were unisex, Aizawa clarified that there were separate male and female bathrooms. Much to Mineta's disappointment, that night, everyone gathered in the common room. They were still very excited. Suddenly, Mina suggested organizing a contest to see whose room was the nicest, which shocked Midoriya, because his room was covered in All Might merchandise, making everyone very excited. Fumikage's room was very dark, while Yuga's room sparkled brightly. Mineta wanted everyone to see his room, but the girls didn't want to go in, so they ended up seeing all the boys' rooms in the class. This made them feel unfair. So, Mineta immediately suggested reviewing the girls' rooms. Unexpectedly, Mina agreed immediately, and they would choose the person with the best decorated room, who would be crowned the King of Rooms. This excited Mineta very much, because he was about to see the girls' rooms. So, they all went to see Kyoka's room together. Unexpectedly, her room had many types of musical instruments, but Denki and Yuga felt her room wasn't feminine at all. Next was Toru's room, which delighted Mineta very much. Then came Mina's room, all pink. Ochako's room was very simple. Finally, Momo's room surprised everyone, because her room was too luxurious. At this point, Mina began to summarize. In the end, they chose Sato's room, because his room had a lot of sweets. The next morning, everyone woke up together. Then, they had breakfast together, which made everyone very happy. At this point, Aizawa addressed the whole class. They needed to obtain the provisional hero license to be able to fight against villains, so they would have to take a very difficult test. He instructed each person to come up with at least 2 new special moves. Suddenly, 3 professional heroes appeared, which excited everyone, because they would help Midoriya's group train. They changed into hero costumes and went to the training location. Suddenly, Iida asked why they needed to come up with new moves to get the provisional hero license. Thus, Aizawa told everyone, the hero's mission is to rescue people in all situations. So this test will evaluate all their abilities, especially their combat skills, and coming up with new moves will help them pass the test. So, the heroes began to change the environment. To help the students train, Aizawa said they not only needed to come up with new moves, but they also needed to strengthen their quirks, which made everyone very excited. At this point, they began training against Ectoplasm's clones, which helped them make a lot of progress, while Midoriya still hadn't come up with any new special moves. Ectoplasm noticed that Midoriya's quirk was the most unstable, so he advised Midoriya to focus on strengthening his quirk. While Aizawa observed everyone, suddenly, All Might also arrived, because he wanted to see his students training, but All Might noticed Midoriya was struggling. Unexpectedly, Bakugo defeated one of Ectoplasm's clones, which delighted him greatly. Seeing Bakugo training, everyone was motivated even more. While Midoriya was deep in thought, All Might came to give him advice. He said, "Up until now, you've been imitating me." So, Midoriya began to think, and All Might continued giving advice to others. By evening, Midoriya was still contemplating All Might's advice. Thus, he was determined to come up with a new special move. Suddenly, Ochako and Iida saw Midoriya, as they were about to ask about his training results, when suddenly, a room exploded, surprising both of them. It turned out Hatsume and Powerloader were conducting a failed experiment, which shocked Ochako. As Hatsume was pressing against Midoriya, he caught a glimpse of her chest, which made Midoriya feel embarrassed. It turned out Midoriya came here to ask Powerloader to upgrade his equipment, which excited Hatsume. So, Midoriya asked Powerloader to upgrade the equipment, helping him reduce strain on his arms. Powerloader said this wouldn't take too much time, which delighted Midoriya. Suddenly, Hatsume hugged Midoriya to check his body, which shocked Midoriya and Ochako. It turned out she wanted Midoriya to try on her new armor, but the armor was faulty, which caused Midoriya to have back pain. At this point, Iida suggested he needed cooling gear on his legs, but Hatsume accidentally put the gear on his arm, causing him to fly straight into the ceiling. Hatsume told Iida to use his arm instead of his leg, which reminded Midoriya of All Might's words. At this point, Powerloader told them, Hatsume is a very special student. She's passionate about creating support equipment, which surprised them, because she always comes up with ideas and experiments without fear of failure. Suddenly, Midoriya understood All Might's words, and helped him come up with a way to develop his own special move. The next day, everyone continued to train hard. and they all made a lot of progress. After 4 days, All Might came back to check on everyone's progress. He saw that Fumikage had come up with a new move called Black Abyss, helping him equip Dark Shadow onto himself. Meanwhile, Bakugo had devised a move called Armor Piercing Shot, which delighted him. Suddenly, a piece of rock fell towards All Might. Unexpectedly, Midoriya immediately jumped up, surprising All Might, and he kicked the rock to pieces. It turned out Midoriya's new special move was using his legs. Previously, Hatsume knew Midoriya wanted to switch to fighting with his legs, which made her very pleased. She helped Midoriya create a pair of shoes. Seeing Midoriya's training results made All Might very pleased with him. Everyone was also thrilled with Midoriya's shoes. It turns out everyone had upgraded their gear as well. Suddenly, Class B also arrived, because they had scheduled training this afternoon. It turns out this provisional hero license exam, they will have to compete with other schools, because the number of provisional hero licenses is limited. They will be fighting against those with very powerful quirks. By evening, all the girls were very tired, as their exam would start in less than a week. Suddenly, they saw Ochako sitting absent-mindedly. Ochako said that lately her heart had been racing. Everyone realized Ochako was in love, which made Ochako embarrassed and fly away. Suddenly, she saw Midoriya still training outside, which moved Ochako deeply, so she asked herself if she really was in love. Finally, their exam day arrived, which made everyone very excited. Suddenly, a dynamic student appeared, surprising Midoriya's class. They realized this student was from Shiketsu High School, a renowned hero academy in the West. At this point, they were very excited, because they were about to face students from Ua High School. Aizawa recognized him as Inasa, and he warned that Inasa is very strong, having scored top marks in the entrance exam. But Inasa had declined to join Ua High School. Midoriya realized Inasa is strong, like Shoto. Suddenly, a female teacher saw Aizawa, making her very happy, because they hadn't seen each other in a long time. Midoriya realized she was Smile Hero, Ms. Joke, whose quirk makes everyone around burst into laughter. It turns out she also led a group of students to participate in the exam. So, they greeted Midoriya's class, making Bakugo uncomfortable. Aizawa immediately told everyone inside to prepare. At this point, Midoriya saw there were many people here, which surprised them. Suddenly, a sleep-deprived man appeared. He would explain the exam to them. Mara said that there are 1540 people here, but only 100 people are allowed to participate in the provisional hero license exam, causing everyone to worry, and he explained the rules of the exam. Each participant will attach 3 targets to their body, and each person will have 6 balls. Their task is to throw the balls at the targets of others. If a student eliminates 2 others, they will advance past the preliminary round. Midoriya realized the rules of this round were very challenging. Suddenly, the room was opened, surprising everyone, because they had set up a large terrain for the participants. As soon as the competition began, everyone immediately sought out suitable positions for themselves. Midoriya realized they should team up together, but Bakugo and Shoto preferred to act alone. At this point, Midoriya realized the other participants knew their class's quirks well, because they had become famous after the sports festival. Suddenly, Midoriya's group was immediately surrounded, and they were bombarded with balls thrown from the other groups. So, Midoriya immediately used One for All, and he kicked the balls back. Others also tried to block the balls. At this point, the 2 teachers were still observing their students fighting each other. Shindo's group decided to combine their quirks to throw the balls. Shikui used his stiffening quirk on the balls. Then, Toteki used his boomerang quirk to throw them, because his quirk can change the trajectory of objects he throws. Midoriya realized the balls had sunk into the ground. So, Kyoka immediately used her sound-amplifying quirk on the ground, causing their balls to fly up. It was Midoriya's group's turn to counterattack. Fumikage immediately attacked Tatami, but she managed to evade. Her quirk turned out to be telescopic, allowing her to retract her body like a turtle. Shindo noticed that Midoriya's class had become stronger after the sports festival. While Midoriya continued to analyze and observe his opponents, Shindo took action at this moment. He used his vibrate quirk, immediately causing a shockwave on the ground, sending Midoriya's group flying. Shoto and everyone felt the shockwave. On the other side, the other participants witnessed a large whirlwind that swept away all their balls. It turned out Inasa used his whirlwind quirk. He then threw all the balls back towards them, causing many participants to be eliminated. Much to Mara's surprise, Inasa alone has eliminated up to 120 people. At this moment, Midoriya realizes, he and everyone else have been separated. If his class doesn't regroup quickly, then, they will lose. Suddenly, Midoriya was attacked, which surprised him. Midoriya realizes this girl is a student from Shiketsu. She sees Midoriya, which makes her very excited. Midoriya feels like this girl talks too much, so, she continues to attack Midoriya. Unexpectedly, she immediately disappears, surprising Midoriya. Midoriya doesn't know where she went. Suddenly, she immediately grabs Midoriya from behind. He thinks her quirk might be invisibility, but she says it's just her hiding technique. So, Midoriya is restrained by her, and she says, I want to know a lot more about you. However, Midoriya immediately broke free. Suddenly, they were attacked. Midoriya realizes he's surrounded, and they continue to attack him relentlessly, so, he has to find a way to escape. Suddenly, Ochako found Midoriya, but she was also attacked and fell down. So, Midoriya immediately jumped to Ochako without hesitation, and Midoriya unleashed a very strong kick to fend them off. It turns out these shoes helped him enhance the power of his kick. At this point, Midoriya and Ochako managed to escape. Suddenly, Ochako used a ball to touch Midoriya's target. Luckily, he detected it in time, because Midoriya recognized her as the girl from earlier, so, she revealed her true form, and she immediately attacked Midoriya. Luckily, Hanta managed to help him in time. Ochako then appeared and attacked her, making the girl disappointed, because she wanted to talk to Midoriya more, so, she left. At this point, Midoriya informed both of them, her quirk can disguise herself as someone else, making Ochako embarrassed, because that girl disguised herself as Ochako. Now, Midoriya's group realizes, they need to regroup quickly with everyone else. On Shoto's side, they realized that 53 people had passed out of 100. So, he needs to act quickly. Suddenly, Shoto was attacked by a group of ninjas. They were very confident they could defeat Shoto, but Shoto immediately used ice to block their attacks and froze their legs. One of them continuously enlarged objects to throw at Shoto. So, he used ice and fire to block them. Quickly, they escaped from Shoto's ice, thus, they continued to attack Shoto. So, he used ice and fire to block them and create steam, making it impossible for them to see Shoto. Shoto quickly appeared behind them, and he defeated them with a single blow. Finally, Shoto emerged victorious, so, he passed the exam and entered the waiting room. On Momo's team, they were still figuring out how to surpass this exam. Suddenly, Kyoka heard a group of people approaching. Unexpectedly, they activated speakers, causing Kyoka great pain in her ears. Now, they were advancing toward them. It turns out Momo's group had been surrounded by them, so, Momo immediately started thinking of a way to escape. Suddenly, Kyoka rushed forward, but, she was immediately shot, causing her earphone jack to bleed. Momo realized their opponents had a very clever person. Unexpectedly, they sealed off the entire building and sprayed cold gas, making Momo's group feel very cold, putting Suyu into a state of hibernation. So, Momo quickly created a blanket for Suyu. Suddenly they realized they had been locked in here. Thus, Momo had to think of a solution immediately. It turns out the attacker of Momo's group was Saiko, and she was incredibly intelligent herself, so, she devised a plan with Momo's team. It turns out Saiko's quirk is IQ. Just drinking her IQ tea would raise it to 150. Her quirk could even change depending on the type of tea. At this point, she was eager to see Momo's abilities, but Momo realized they were waiting for them to exhaust their quirks, making everyone anxious. Momo wondered what Shoto, Midoriya, and Iida would do in this situation. Suddenly, she remembered Midoriya's determination to rescue Bakugo, so, she realized she had to save her friends as well. Immediately, Momo created a lot of earphones, and she also created something very large. While Saiko thought Momo had given up, so, they decided to go inside. Suddenly, they all fainted. Saiko realized it was a supersonic wave. It turned out Momo had created a large speaker for Kyoka to amplify sound waves. Thanks to that, they managed to escape outside. At this moment, Suyu had also regained consciousness. Unexpectedly, Saiko had secretly dragged Momo into a room. Saiko was still determined and refused to give up. She was determined to defeat Momo. Unexpectedly, Momo had created handcuffs to restrain her. Fortunately, everyone managed to break into the room to help Momo. This surprised Saiko, because they didn't care about the competition and still came back to rescue Momo. It turns out they're all like Midoriya, so, they would never abandon their friends. Saiko saw their determination. Thus, she conceded defeat. On Bakugo's side, He was very annoyed, because Kirishima and Denki followed him. Suddenly, they were ambushed, and he turned Kirishima into a meatball, which made Bakugo very excited to defeat him. At that moment, Midoriya's group was still planning, because he realized that many people were looking for them, and Midoriya's group had to attack them first. Therefore, Midoriya will act as bait. Hanta felt they couldn't do it with just 3 people, but Ochako believed in Midoriya, so they decided to take action. On Bakugo's side, this guy still consistently underestimated him, and he decided to defeat them quickly, but Bakugo found his talking too much, so they immediately started fighting, while Midoriya had lured the other participants after him, and he continuously dodged their attacks. Ochako and Hanta immediately supported Midoriya. On Bakugo's side, he continuously blocked Seiji's attacks. Even though Denki found his meatballs disgusting, he still supported Bakugo. Unexpectedly, Seiji managed to block their attacks, and he caught Bakugo. It turns out Seiji had secretly placed a meatball under the bridge. When he was about to catch Bakugo, he threw something at Denki, so Bakugo was also turned into a meatball by Seiji. At this point, Denki was left facing Seiji alone. Seiji continued to control the meatballs to attack him. Unexpectedly, Denki threw a bomb at Seiji, surprising him, because Seiji had already turned Bakugo into a meatball. It turns out Bakugo had earlier given Denki a small grenade, which put Seiji within Denki's electric discharge range, so Denki immediately shocked him with electricity. It turns out Denki had previously asked Hatsume to help him create an electric propulsion device, which injured Seiji. While Bakugo and Kirishima were about to revert back, he realized he had been too careless, making him furious and continuing to attack Denki. Suddenly, he was attacked by Kirishima and Bakugo, and they defeated Seiji. Denki noticed others had also returned to normal, which delighted Bakugo. At this point, Shoto realized 70 people had passed the exam, and he met Momo's group, but they were very worried about the others. While Midoriya's group continued to lure the other participants after them, they fell into their trap, making them unable to move. Midoriya's group realized time was running out, so they aimed the ball at their target to pass the exam. Now, only Iida's group remained. Suddenly, he saw Yuga hiding. It turns out Iida was running around to find everyone, because he is the class representative, so he had to worry about the members of his class. At that moment, Denki saw Midoriya's group had also passed, making them very happy. Midoriya kept thinking Bakugo still looked down on him, but Bakugo acknowledged Midoriya and asked, "Have you made that power your own yet?" This made Midoriya remember their earlier promise. Meanwhile, Iida was trying to help Yuga. He saw they were surrounded, so Iida grabbed Yuga and ran away. He looked very responsible and always cared about everyone, making Yuga reminisce about his childhood, so he immediately shot lasers into the sky, surprising Lida. Turns out he wanted to attract attention, for Lida to use his speed to take down those here, so they quickly converged on Yuga. Suddenly they were attacked by a flock of Yuga's birds. It turns out Fumikage's group came to help them, causing them to fall into Mineta's trap. So, they all together threw balls at each other's targets. Thanks to Yuga's laser, they gathered together, and each person in Midoriya's class passed this round. Only Yuga and Iida remain, so they together won the next round, making Midoriya's class very happy, because everyone passed the preliminaries. Now, round 2 was about to begin. Suddenly, they saw the city had been destroyed. Turns out their mission this time was to rescue those in distress, making Midoriya remember the time when All Might rescued people, and they saw many civilians appearing. Turns out they are all professional actors from Help Us Company. In this part of the competition, they will be judged, but contestants with scores higher than the minimum will pass. While waiting for the next round to begin, Hanta told Mineta about Kami. When they found out she liked Midoriya, they were shocked, and they immediately pressured him to confess what he did to her. Suddenly, Kami greeted Midoriya, making Mineta and Denki even more angry. At this moment, Shoto came to talk to Inasa, because he realized Inasa doesn't like him. Turns out Inasa really hates Endeavor, so he doesn't like Shoto either. Meanwhile, Ochako was still observing Kami. Ochako didn't understand why she felt uneasy when she saw Kami being friendly with Midoriya. Suddenly they received the announcement that the next round of the competition was starting, so everyone immediately tried to run fast to rescue people. Today's video ends here. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to support Oni-chan in the next videos. Thank you for watching, love you all.